Okay, we're going to look at a maamar that the Rebbe said in the year Tavshemem Aleph, 1981, but he edited and put it out for distribution in the year Tavshemem Ches. Tavshemem Ches is 1988, 5748, and Tavshemem Ches spells Tismach, which means be happy. And during that year, the Rebbe emphasized greatly the mitzvah of being happy of bringing joy into the world. And so this maamar, even though it was said several years earlier, he particularly gave it out during that year because the theme of this maamar is simcha, is joy. And it gives a very profound understanding of what simcha really is. And the way it gets there is in a very fascinating way. So let's have a look. So the Rebbe's maamar here, B'siyat D'Shmaya, earlier, Hey, Parshas Chayei Sarah. So this was on a Wednesday night, the Rebbe said this maamar, in the Parsha of Chayei Sarah, Chaf Mar Cheshvan, and it was the 20th of Mar Cheshvan, which is Yom HaLedes Kedushas Adma Mar Rashab Nishmas Eden, which is the birthday of the Rebbe Rashab, 20th of Mar Cheshvan. Tavshemem Aleph, 1981. So says the maamar, V'yu Chayei Sarah, Meya Shana V'esrim Shana V'sheva Shana M'shnei Chayei Sarah. The pasuk says that the life of Sarah was 100 years, 20 years and 7 years, the years of the life of Sarah. Right, that Sarah Imenu, our mother Sarah, lived 127 years. But the way the verse says it is, and the life of Sarah was 127 years, the years of the life of Sarah. So Medag K'vei Kedushas Adma Mar Rashab Nishmas Ha'edin Ba'al Yom HaLedes B'maamar Dibur Maskal Zeh D'Shnas HaTeres. So the Rebbe Rashab, whose birthday it is on this day, the 20th of Mar Cheshvan, has a maamar that starts with this verse from the year Ateres, Tov Reish Ayin Tes, which would correspond to 1919. In the year 1919, the Rebbe Rashab said a maamar and asked the following questions on this verse. Mahu Omer Shnei Chayei Sarah. What is the verse doing by concluding and saying these are the years of the life of Sarah? The verse begins, and the life of Sarah was 127 years. And then it says, the years of the life of Sarah. Well, why? That's what we're talking about. Why do you repeat that? Why is it saying it again? After the verse has already detailed the exact years that Sarah lived in hundreds, tens and units, 100 years, 20 years and 7 years. It's already told us exactly. So why does the verse then repeat itself and say the years of the life of Sarah? What's this double expression? Another question which the Zohar asks on this verse. Why do we find specifically by Sarah we're told how many years she lived? To the point where we've got a parsha named the life of Sarah, which indicates that the entire parsha's theme is the life of Sarah, how many years she lived. We don't find any of the other mothers of the Jewish people where the number of years they lived is detailed in the Torah. We're not told that. And generally speaking, the dating system of the Torah is by men, by patriarchs. This is how many years this one lived, and then the next one lived that how many years. We're not told the years of their wives, of the women of the Torah, generally speaking, and that the mothers, we don't hear any of their lifespans except for Sarah. Not only that, but a parsha is called Chayei Sarah, the life of Sarah, as if there's something very vital, very important about how many years Sarah lived. Why? Why is Sarah different? So maybe maamar hazoyar. So to explain this, the Rebbe Rashab in his maamar on this topic quotes a Zohar. Listen to the words of the Zohar. Osas Chava la'alma v'istabkas b'chivya. Chava came into the world, Eve came into the world, and cleaved to the snake. Asa Noach la'alma, Noach came into the world, Maksiv Bey, and what does it say about him? Vayoshes min hayayin vayishkar, that he drank, he drank from the wine and got drunk. Asa Sarah v'nachtas v'salkas. Sarah came along, went down, and came up again. And did not cleave to evil. As it says in the Torah, Avram came up from Egypt, he and his wife. And for this reason, she merited to the supernal life, the higher life. And the Zohar concludes, and therefore, her life was hers. So what is this saying? Again, the Zohar says, Chava came along into the world, but she got stuck with the snake. She cleaved to the snake. Noach came to the world, but he got drunk. Sarah came along, she went down, but she came up again. As it says that Avram went down to Egypt and came up again with his wife, came out of Egypt. She did not get stuck in the evil, and for that reason she merited to the supernal life, and her life is hers. That's what the Zohar says. Somewhat mysterious. So we will understand the Zohar as we go along. Through quoting this Zohar, the Rebbe Rashab in his maamar explains the two questions we had. Why does the Torah repeat the years of Sarah's life? Why do we anyway hear about Sarah's lifespan and no other of the mothers? The Rebbe Rashab explains it by quoting this Zohar. Shedafke b'Sarah nemar yimei chayah, shlenem b'shari ma'is. That it's only Sarah's lifespan that we hear, not the other mothers, because it was Sarah, through the fact that she went down and came up again, merited to the supernal life. And the fact that it doubles the statement, the years of the life of Sarah, even though the verse started already by saying the life of Sarah is, because the two statements of Sarah's life in the verse, the life of Sarah corresponds to the fact that Sarah merited to this supernal life. And when it repeats itself and says the years of Sarah's life, it's referring to the fact that Sarah's life was hers. Not just did she merit to supernal life, but her life was hers, which is what the Zohar says. We don't understand what this means yet, but we're just matching it up. This is what the Rebbe Rashab says, that the two statements in the verse correspond to the two statements in the Zohar, that Sarah merited to supernal life, whatever that is, and Sarah merited that her life was hers, whatever that means. So, having quoted all this, we've now got the Rebbe Rashab quoting the Zohar to explain the verses. We need to understand what all that means. What does it mean that Sarah merited to a supernal life? What does it mean that she merited that her life is hers? What are these two things? But while we're doing that, we also need to understand this Zohar generally. Gam tzarich lahavin the melashon hazar asas Chava, asa Noach, asa Sarah movin sheshayches ben gimel yonim elu. The Zohar said that Chava came along, but she got stuck with a snake. Noach came along, but he got drunk. Sarah came along, she went down, but she came up. What does it sound like? It sounds like there's some type of theme, there's a thread, that Chava started something, didn't get it done. Noach tried to, he also failed. Sarah came along and she got it. She achieved it. She was successful. There's a thread, there's a continuation between Chava, Noach, and Sarah.
Also, it's a bit funny that it doesn't mention Abraham, because she says that he went down and came up with it.
Correct. But it's not Avram who achieved it, it's Sarah who achieved it. Yep. So what indeed is the connection here between Chava, Noach, and Sarah? What's the commonality? What do they all try to achieve that Chava and Noach failed and Sarah was successful. Somehow this Zohar is saying that Chava and Noach wanted to achieve that which Sarah was successful in achieving. They were unsuccessful. Not only were they unsuccessful, they actually fell. Chava got stuck with a snake, and Noach became drunk. However, Sarah, even though Sarah also did go down, it says, she had a yerida, a descent. But it was through her descent that she ended up having an ascent. She came up again. She was successful in whatever this mission was that she was trying to achieve. Nachtas v'salkas. In the lashon of the Zohar, she went down, but she came up. So we have to understand what's the connection between these three episodes of Chava, Noach, and Sarah. Over the page. So we've got a mysterious Zohar that we need to decipher. So continues the Rebbe in base. Ma'isa of a similar bond. Before we start explaining the Zohar, we're just going to lay down another principle, and that is, there's a statement in the commentaries on the Torah that say Ma'isa of a similar bond. The actions of our forefathers are a precursor for the children, for us. Meaning, what does that mean? That the forefathers, the life that they lived was not a private life, it wasn't just their story. Their story was a prototype, a paradigm, a model for future generations. Everything that they did was a forecast for what will happen in the future. And the reason why the forefathers are called forefathers is because children take after their parents. They are the parents of the entire Jewish people. What they did, what they achieved, what they lived through, their lives, the details of the episodes of their lives are all repeated in our lives. And what they achieved was for future generations. Ma'isa Avos, the action of the forefathers, is siman, is a sign for the children of what's going to come. It doesn't just mean that it's a forecast of what's going to happen. A siman, a sign, usually means that it's an indication of what's going to be. Here it's more than that. It's not just an indication, it's also an empowerment. The forefathers' lives, what they went through, empowered us in our future to be able to do the same. So for example, when Avram Avinu had Mesiras Nefesh, was thrown into the fire for his beliefs, that was he implanted in his progeny, in the Jewish people forever, the ability for Mesiras Nefesh, the power to stand up and not give in for our beliefs. What he did empowered us to do the same, gave us the same power. That's what Ma'isa of a similar bond really means. A similar concept we find several times in the Talmud, in the Gemara. It quotes a certain rabbi by saying, Pasach Reb Ploni, that Rabbi this and that, Rabbi so-and-so opened up his lesson with the following teaching. And he would teach some inspiring teaching. So the simple meaning is that this is the introduction to his class. He was about to give a class, so he opened up the class with the following inspiring lesson. But in Chassidus it explains, Pasach, opened up, doesn't just mean he opened up his class. What it means is that these teachers, when they taught their lessons, they opened up a new possibility. They blazed a path. That when our sages taught a lesson, taught an idea, taught a moral teaching, they weren't just giving over information. They were opening up a possibility. They were opening a pathway for us. So when we study the sages giving us advice, they're not just giving us advice. Their words, their teaching, their power has energy to make us able to follow this path. They opened up a pathway, a pipeline, an opening for us to follow. That once that path has been opened, and certainly when a path has been blazed and cleared, This actually gives everyone the opportunity to follow that path, to do it. And you don't need as much hard work as you would if you were opening the pathway on your own. Like the first time. So just like the first time people traveled to the Blue Mountains, they had to blaze a path through the wilderness, they had to knock down trees and find a way. There was no path. That was a difficult journey. Once that path had been flattened, had been blazed, had been opened up, the next people going to the Blue Mountains was not such a big deal, because the path has been opened up. So too in the spiritual worlds. When it says Pasach Rebbe Ploni, when this rabbi opened up his sermon, doesn't mean he introduced his sermon. It means he opened up a new path in serving Hashem. He worked very hard to open up this path. He had to do all the hard spiritual work. But once he's opened it up, he's giving it to us, he's teaching it to us, we can follow it much easier. We could just go along the path. So all the Sfarim that we have, what are these Sfarim? The people who wrote these books. The Alter Rebbe wrote Tanya. What was he doing? He wasn't sitting around saying, I really want to write a book. He was working on himself. He opened up a path in service of Hashem. And he said, after all this work, I shouldn't keep it to myself. I should share it. Because I've opened up the path, but now somebody else can just follow the path. So he wrote it down. So we have the advantage of having the Sefer Tanya, which is a guide of how to go along that path, which has already been opened for us. The Alter Rebbe did it. He did the hard work and made it more available for us, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to start from scratch and make our own path. The path is open for us. This is what all the great teachers were doing. They worked on something, they worked on a path, and then they made that path open and available to us. And this is even more true of the forefathers. The forefathers being our forefathers, so they're not just our teachers, but we inherit from them. We follow their path because we descend from them. So their avodah, all the various things that they did in their lives was opening up a pathway for us to follow, and now it's a smooth path. It's an easier path than the first time. That's why it says, the Rebbe says why do we make such a big deal out of Avram Avinu being willing to sacrifice his son, Yitzchak, the Akedah? Indeed, it's a big deal, but historically, it's happened many times. There have been many Jewish people who've been willing to give their own lives and their children's lives up for Hashem. And they didn't get a direct instruction to do it. They didn't get a revelation to do it. They were willing to do it. Hannah and her 7 sons, for example, she was willing to give up 7 sons. There have been many people throughout Jewish history who have sadly had to give themselves or their families up, their lives up for being Jewish. So why do we make such a major deal out of Avram Avinu doing it when Hashem himself told him to? So the Rebbe answers, because he did it first. The first one to do it is the hardest. Once it's been done once, then that path is open for everybody else. It's not as, I mean, it's difficult, but it's not a new path. Avram Avinu did it when no one else had done it before. He was willing to give himself up for Hashem when that was a totally new thing to do. So that's different to all others that come afterwards. The path has been opened. So too all the great sages, when they taught us these lessons, they were opening up a path for us to follow. Now, just interesting, the Rebbe illustrates this idea with a fascinating example. Look at note 16 in the footnotes. The Rebbe explains this idea of opening up a path with the following story. We find a similar concept in understanding a Torah idea. Meaning what? There's a story that goes the following. The great Beis Yosef, the author of the Shulchan Aruch, Rabbi Yosef Karo, lived in Sfas in the 1500s. Was once learning in his yeshiva, and he came across a difficult passage in the Rambam. Something that didn't make sense at first, was not easy to understand what the Rambam meant, or what seemed to contradict something else in the Rambam's writings. There was some very difficult concept in the Rambam that he was studying it and couldn't get what the Rambam was meaning here. And so he spent a long time trying to figure it out. What does this Rambam mean? After nights and nights of being up trying to work out this Rambam, suddenly it hit him. It struck him. He found a way to explain the Rambam, what the Rambam meant, how it fitted really well, and it struck him. You know that feeling after you've been working on a problem and just racking your brains, and then suddenly it hits you. He finally figured it out, and he was very, very felt a sense of relief and a great pleasure in figuring out this Rambam. He was very happy. Well, the very next day, he went to his yeshiva, and he overheard somebody was learning the same Rambam that he had been learning. So, between these two young students were studying the Rambam, and one of them asked the other one the question that the Beis Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Karo, had been struggling with for weeks on this Rambam. So Beis Yosef said, "Oh, well, let me hear what are they going to do with this?" So he says, "Nena Talmid Chacham rach b'shanim v'amalei Talmid Chacham derech kamoi shehu." See, he suddenly heard that this other very young student gave the exact explanation that the Beis Yosef had finally figured out after racking his brains for days. He just gave it as a simple explanation on the Rambam. So Moran Zal Nitztar Shekol Mashatar Chuz Zal Oisa Talmid Chacham Am B'Neikel. So the Beis Yosef was actually pained by this. He said, "Here I am," not in an arrogant way. He's saying, "But I'm an experienced scholar, and it took me weeks of thinking, and I finally figured out what this Rambam means. And here, this young scholar comes across and just explains it like the simplest thing." He felt, "Is something wrong with me? Am I missing something?" He felt really terrible. Now, the Beis Yosef was lucky that he had a magid. A magid in this context means an angel that would teach him. That he had nocturnal visits from an angel who would reveal him secrets of Torah, which he would record and write down. And there's a whole sefer called Magid Mesharim. I think it's on the shelf here. And it is the teachings of... It's there somewhere. It's the teachings of this angel that would reveal secrets of Torah to the Magid, to Rabbi Yosef Karo. And so he writes them down, what they are, like Torah ideas. So after this episode happened, where this young student had given an explanation that the Beis Yosef had racked his brains over, va'omaloi ha-magid, so his magid, his angel, revealed himself to him and said, "Al tistar, don't feel pained. She'ata zechisa l'torach ma'od. You merited to work hard to figure out this problem in Torah. Va'al yidei zeh kivanta le'emes. Through that, you came to truth. You explained that Rambam correctly. But after you worked hard and revealed the idea, you brought it down, now any scholar, any student can get it."
Uh-huh. Why can't that work at school? For the kids.
Maybe it does, I don't know. that once the idea has been brought down by one person, so somebody else can understand it more readily. The path
can be anybody,
is
yeah.
Sorry?
It can be anybody, yeah. It doesn't have to be a tzaddik or
Correct.
like anybody can get it.
Correct. So one sec. What is this malach? What's this magid telling him? That you worked hard to figure out the problem. So you brought down the answer. You've brought it down into the world of consciousness. This student didn't hear your explanation. You didn't share it with anybody. But now it's here. It's available. It's down here. And so when he came across that Rambam and asked the same question, the answer was readily available because you brought it down. You've downloaded it. It's in the ether now, and so it's available to anyone, which is a fascinating idea.
It is.
That an idea has like a currency, has a presence, has
Power, so
it's there. It's there in the open. This concept, by the way, has been noted in secular areas as well, where certain inventions were discovered at the same
Right.
time in different places. Where one person on one side of the world has been working on some theory and they get it, and someone on the other side of the world who has no contact with them also gets it at that time.
Is that with the telephone, and then
Could be the
someone
telephone.
else really discovered it, but the other person got the patent.
Mhm.
Alexander Graham Bell.
Yeah.
It was
Also,
really
so-
discovered by the Jews.
There are certain schools of psychoanalysis as well that were worked on in one place and then somewhere else had also come up with this idea,
Very
like
soon after.
very randomly connected. So there is this invisible platter of ideas.
So it must be that today you can get
Yeah,
much
there's
more
like we have the
information.
idea of the internet
I was just going to say, it's
That-
like hooking into the internet.
that it's there so you can download it.
So once somebody puts up a website, anybody can get it.
Correct. Even though you never met the person, they didn't deliver it to you.
Yeah.
But it's there. It's available. So in concept there is that as well. That there's a storage of ideas that once it's there, it's more available. This, the Rebbe says, is another illustration of the idea that you can blaze a path. Once the path is blazed, anyone can go along it. Spiritually as well. Once the forefathers blazed their path of serving Hashem, so that path is now open, and you don't have to work it out again. You don't have to start from the beginning. You can just go along the path. Just like that student didn't have to rework the idea. The Beis Yosef did the hard work, and now the student can figure it out, even though they never discussed it with each other. The Rebbe then refers to another story. He doesn't say it fully, but he refers to another story that the Alter Rebbe said about the Maggid. The Alter Rebbe said that when he would be by his Rebbe, the Maggid of Mezrich, so the Maggid would sometimes say Torah to his students, and he'd be saying these very deep Torah ideas. And in the middle of his talk, he would give out expressions that made no sense. He would suddenly say words that was a bit of a mumbo jumble, a jumble of words that didn't really make any sense. You could see that he was deep in thought, and he would just blurt out stuff that nobody could understand. So Alter Rebbe said that the Maggid explained that sometimes when he's saying Torah, so when a Rebbe is saying Torah, he's not just trying to think of something to say. The Rebbe is revealing new levels of ideas that his soul is receiving. He's like a channel, a conduit that is revealing divine wisdom. The Maggid said that sometimes when he's in that state of channeling these ideas, so a concept or an idea or a revelation will come to him, not fully land in his mind, not be processed to the point where he can explain it, but he doesn't want to lose it. So he would just blurt out whatever words would come out, just to give the idea a landing, a grounding, just to get it out there, in the hope that those who are hearing it will maybe be able to work it out or figure it out because it's here now. Even though the words you can't figure out what it said, it made no sense. But once the concept has been said, so then at least it's down here, and so maybe afterwards we can work out what it was. If I don't say it, it remains abstract, aloof, and not available. So he says, I don't want to miss those concepts that are coming down by waiting and seeing if I can process the information. I might miss out on it. So I just blurt out the words. So I've given some grounding to the concept. It's here now, even though it's not yet understood. And then maybe then we'll work out what it was. So here again is the idea that even the Maggid himself has not yet processed these ideas. But by at least saying it, bring it down somewhat, so then somebody can take it up, can continue it. The Rebbe seemed to do this as well, by the way. There were certain times when those who recorded the Rebbe's talks would say that there were lashonis bilti muvanim, the expressions that were not understandable. He was talking, but it was not possible to understand what was being said. And it seemed that there as well that the Rebbe was sharing stuff, bringing it down, but in a way that at that moment could not really be understood.
Can you say that some of the Sfarim that were burnt as well that we don't have today, like some of my mom and like the Altarevis, Oakland Siddiqui, like all these things, like there was still purpose in writing it down because now it's here in this world. Like,
I guess, yeah, the fact that something was written, was here, it has some presence, I guess, even if it's been lost. Yeah. Okay, so going back into the maamar, if this is true of all the great teachers, that when they brought down an idea, when they brought down a concept, it was an opening, it was a blazing a path for us to follow. If that's true of all the teachers, so look on the 5th line after the brackets. How much more does this apply to the lives of the forefathers? Since they are the forefathers of the entire Jewish people, so therefore, all of their spiritual achievements, all of their hard work, is brought down through inheritance to us, their children. So if any rabbi, any teacher, any scholar, any holy person, by blazing a path that opens it for everyone else, how much more so the forefathers, who are our forefathers, we inherit from them. We are an extension of them, we're a continuation of them. So their achievements are an opening for us, something that we inherit, that we continue, that we have as our own. And the exact same applies to the mothers. Maisa Avos doesn't just mean the forefathers, but it also applies equally to the mothers. And even more so when you're talking about Sarah Imenu, the first of the mothers. The Rebbe says, I'll prove to you just how much Sarah is our mother. About Sarah it says, Hashem told Avraham that whatever Sarah says to you, listen to her voice. Which, even though that was a particular instruction to Avraham, her husband, to listen to everything that she says, because her prophecy was on a higher level than his, but the fact that the Torah records that instruction means it's talking to us as well. Whatever Sarah says, listen to her. Meaning that Sarah is our mother. Whatever she says, whatever she does, her whole life is something that we need to listen to respond to internalize. So therefore, with all this, we can understand that the above-mentioned idea, that Sarah was the one who came down but successfully came up again. Unlike Chava and Noach, she was able to come down and go up again. This, like everything the forefathers and the foremothers did, is an instruction and also an empowerment in our avodah, the avodah of every Jew. That we also have to somehow emulate whatever Sarah was achieving in going down and coming up. We have to and are able to emulate what she did because we are her children. So the Rebbe says, so then we need to understand what is therefore the instruction to us from the fact that Sarah went down and came up again. How does that apply to us in our service of Hashem after Matan Torah, after the giving of the Torah? Before the giving of the Torah, serving Hashem was done through going down to Mitzrayim and leaving Mitzrayim. The movements and travels of the forefathers were their spiritual avodas Hashem. For us, our service of Hashem is Torah mitzvahs. So how can we learn today in our avodas Hashem something from what Sarah did before the giving of the Torah, without Torah mitzvahs? How are we supposed to emulate that? What is our version today of going down and coming up? Going down into Mitzrayim and coming up again, that Sarah did. How does that apply to us? That's what we need to understand. So we've got a few things that need to be sorted out. We started with the questions on the pasuk. It says, and the life of Sarah was 127 years. The years of the life of Sarah, the repetition. Why do we need to know Sarah's lifespan and none of the other mothers? The answer that the Rebbe Rashab gave is from the Zohar. The Zohar says that Chava came down and got stuck to the snake. Noach came and got drunk. But Sarah went down and came up, therefore she merited to supernal life, and her life is hers. Supernal life is represented by, and these are the days of life of Sarah. The life is hers is represented by the years of Sarah's life, the repetition. But what are these two things? What do they mean? What's the continuation of Sarah? How did Sarah do what Noach and Chava didn't do? What were they all trying to achieve? And then because the four fathers and the four mothers, everything they did is a blazing path for us, how do we do all this? How is what Sarah achieved in going down and coming up, how is that something that we can emulate? What do we need to do to follow that path? These are the questions that we're going to need to answer in the course of the maamar. So to get to that answer, let's start Gimel. So the kernel of the explanation is as the Rebbe Rashab explains in his maamar that we've been quoting. Is that the service of Hashem has to be b'simcha, with joy. And we're going to see that what Chava was trying to achieve, what Noach was trying to achieve, and what Sarah was successful in achieving is reaching this joy in serving Hashem. That we'll see later. But the principle is that avodas Hashem has to be with simcha. Kashakasav ivdas Hashem b'simcha, as it says, serve Hashem with simcha. Now from there, serve Hashem with simcha, we would conclude that the serving Hashem